exactly like Hollywood royalty. This happens in just a few seconds and it's over. And, to be fair now, most of those people ran towards the grassy knoll and whatnot, but a lot of them were just in shock. They didn't know what to think or feel until, things were done. And people have a tendency to always put this on Vietnam. The motive for this case was Vietnam. I think the motive of the case was Cuba. That's all the connections to Oswald. Vietnam was more like a back page story in 1963. And I want to believe that Kennedy never would have had a land war in Vietnam, but there's a part of me that says I can't see him totally getting out of it either. So I think it was Cuba was the whole motivation. They wanted to bomb it back to the Stone Age. They wanted to get rid of Castro once and for all because Bay of Pigs didn't do it. The Cuban Missile Crisis didn't do it. Kennedy shut down the camps. That was going to be the end of Cuba. Their dreams of getting back. We all know the mafia wanted Cuba back too. So it was just a matter of all that. And now, as far as the Secret Service goes, when you don't have the motorcycles bracketing a limousine in good number, you only have 4, but they're behind the rear wheels. They're out of harm's way. You have no military aid in the limousine, out of harm's way. You have a third stringer. Again, imagine going to the Super Bowl or the World Cup. You don't have your starting player, the number one star of your team. You have a third string off the bench. That's what he was, okay? Then you don't have building rooftops guarded as they normally were. Just compare and contrast. I have it in my last 2 books where all the trips were Kennedy's, the motorcade, the rooftops were guarded. But just the prior one in Florida, they were guarded very well. They weren't guarded at all. Okay, just even if they weren't guarding anywhere else but Dealey Plaza, common sense tells. In fact, that Agent Joe Petro even said in his book that it's common sense. If you look at Dealey Plaza, that's a perfect place to assassinate a president. Triangle of fire, he's slowing down. And one thing I'll get to before I forget, I told you before about Gerald Bain told me something else tantalized. I said I'd get to it later about the motorcade route. Well, he told me he was interviewed with the Haas Select Committee, which I already knew, but he says they also interviewed him under executive session. Sean, to this day, his executive session testimony has not come forward. And also Maurice Martineau, the head of the Chicago office, also spoke to them in executive session. His materials have never come forward. But I said, boy, what did they ask you, sir? He says, they asked me about the trip before in Florida, and he asked me why the motorcade route was changed for Dallas. Again, it almost dropped my phone moment. I said, was the motorcade changed for Dallas? He says, I know it was changed, but why? I've forgotten completely. I don't know. So always got to focus on it. He could have been lying. Oh, Vince, he remembered. He just didn't want to tell you over the phone what the details were. He's admitting that the motorcade route was changed for Dallas. He's admitting the High Select Committee is asking him this. And again, all these years later, Assassination Records Review Board, and yes, I did tell Jefferson Morley and other people to look for these things. Maurice Martineau, executive session testimony, never released. Gerald Bain's executive session testimony, never released. And this is a big thing because some people on the other side said, oh, that's a myth. His motorcade route wasn't changed, darn it. Well, it also turned out in research I did for my first book, I have a whole chapter in the motorcade route, that they were going to go Main to Industrial. In fact, when FDR visited Dallas in 1936, he went straight down Main Street. That was the normal thoroughfare. What you would do, when you visited Dallas. In fact, ironically, when Senator Lyndon Johnson and Senator John Kennedy visited Dallas on September 11th, but 1960, they drove through Dealey Plaza, Main Street, never went through that dog leg. They went straight the other way. Okay, Forrest Sorrells, the head of the Dallas office, was part of security in both instances, FDR and in 1960. And yet, just to visit a few more people, they did that awkward dog leg turn to make these turns to go past the book depository, slow the vehicle down, open up to a field of fire. If they would have been going straight down Main Street, again, which is the normal thoroughfare, the normal parade route, as Governor Connolly even admitted under oath, they would have been going further away from the book depository, further away from the grassy knoll, and at a faster rate of speed. In fact, Jerry Bruno, Democratic National Committee advance man, even posited that to William Manchester. I think he also did the High Select Committee. It might even be in his book, The Advancement, that his great thing he always thought in his mind, boy, if only Kennedy was going down Main Street, maybe his assassination never would have occurred. There's one official source that tries to poo-poo and tries to debunk this, and it's Sheriff Bill, it's Lumpkin, right off the top of my head. It's Bill Lumpkin, I think his name is. He was, he's an assistant police chief. I think it was Lumpkin. That's it. Yeah, just right now I'm trying to think of the name. And again, I explore it in my chapter 4 of my book. And he says, oh, there was winos and broken pavement on Main to Industrial. That's why Kennedy didn't go there. And the High Select Committee seemed to buy it. Thing I'll say about that is President Kennedy visited the slums of Caracas, Venezuela. President Kennedy visited the slums of Harlem, New York. Wherever the president goes, so go the people, so go the security. I've been to Industrial Boulevard. Yeah, it's not fancy and ritzy, but it's certainly no embarrassment to a president to go down. I've been to Dealey Plaza several times. They could have definitely gone straight down Main Street. And again, Gerald Bain telling me, the hospital committee asked him why the motorcade route was changed. He goes, I know it was changed. Why? Amazing bombshell stuff. But again, these have never been released. His staff interview has been released. Okay, just like Maurice Martin's staff interview, where somebody interviewed him, took notes, that was released in 1996. But his executive session testimony is not. And I told Jefferson Morley, I said, I wonder who else was interviewed in executive session and their materials. Did they bypass the law of putting these records away for 75 years, and the ARB just totally missed it, fumbled the ball, or didn't know about this? Because I wonder if there's a treasure trove of executive session testimony of other principal people from the CIA, FBI, whatnot, witnesses to the case. Really makes you think, Sean. So
everyone's loving the level of detail you're giving here, Vince, and we really appreciate that. So let me just go back to the chronology briefly then.
Sure.
So you said there's a crossfire occurs now. You've got a guy with Oswald's gun up in the tower. You've got shots coming from front and behind. How many shooters total do you calculate? And are they all front and behind, or is there a triangulation going on as well?
Yeah, I believe there was 2 from behind, one using Oswald's rifle from the book depository, and just 1 from the front. I don't buy into this army of shooters. Some people get carried away. Oh, there was 12 people shooting. There was 20 people shooting. No, come on. Let's get real. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is, if anybody's heard a 21-gun salute, 21 rifles of fire, sounds like 1. Their precision's amazing. So we're only talking 3 shooters, not 21-gun salute. We're just talking 3. So again, they're shooting from the rear, and I believe either the Daltex building or the records building next to the book depository. One with Oswald's rifle, 1 from the front. Now I have wavered on exactly where from the front. Sometimes I believe that traditional grassy knoll, where the acoustics evidence, that juncture of the fence where the big tree's at, and there's a 6 Seconds of Dallas, Josiah Thompson. It's you see what looks like a fedora hat, and you can see right over the fence that mark. But there's another part of me, because I've visited Dealey Plaza several times, the juncture of the overpass and the fence. There's a little bit of a diagonal area that's away from anybody who's on the overpass to see. And there's a grating there. It's not a manhole cover. It's a grating. And you just take the grate off, and someone could have been firing there just a little bit of either under the fence or maybe a little bit of section through the fence. And that would have been a perfect place to have shot Kennedy from there, too. I have not ruled out the South Knoll either, but I don't believe that was part of the headshot or whatnot. And again, the way Dealey Plaza was structured, the lack of security, if it was an inside job, all you had is a few people that hated Kennedy from the Dallas Police Department, a few people didn't like Kennedy from the Secret Service to do what they did, and the vast majority of the other agents and other officers are following orders, even if the orders are perplexing. Like, I don't like, some of the agents even admitted to Gerald Blaine in his book, The Kennedy Detail. Yeah, they have similar names, Bain and Blaine. Said that I don't remember Kennedy ever saying anything about not having agents on the back of the car either. Why is he for the first time all of a sudden? You know, my comment is, yeah, why indeed? And not to get on, I'll make this very brief, not to be in a big digression, but it's actually very important, is that, as most people know, Clint Hill and Gerald Blaine, Blaine, came out with books, Kennedy Detail, Mrs. Kennedy, Me, etc. They came out with those books from 2010 on. Well, those books, at least the initial ones, were in reaction to yours truly. This is not delusions of grandeur or events. You're just taking credit for something. How do we know it's you? I'm 100% sure. I had attorney letters sent to me. I spoke to Blaine and Hill before the books were even a thought. And they saw, because again, my first book wasn't even out yet. Okay. I was just an amateur author. In fact, it was self-published, my first book, before it came out trying day. Okay. And they saw my internet writings, and I think it freaked them out. What happened was Gerald Blaine told me, like he told all the other colleagues, echoed the same thing. Gerald Blaine told me that President Kennedy never interfered with their actions at all. And yet he's seeing my work. He even admitted in 2005 interview when he began his book that when I saw some of the writings on the internet, I knew I had to do something to counter this. And when he comes on C-SPAN on television with the head of CEO, Brian Lamb, him and Clint Hill, they spend 10 minutes talking about yours truly. I have it on my page. And then the second time Clint Hill's on C-SPAN, he brings up me out of nowhere again. It's a totally out of context. They're talking about Jacqueline Kennedy, all these wonderful stories about John, and Caroline. Out of nowhere, the CEO of C-SPAN goes, this gentleman, Vince Palamara, do you remember talking about him last time? He says, yes. Well, he came out with a review of your book, blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is I was little amateur me in an apartment eking out a living at the time in 2010, 2012. I didn't even have a book out yet. Why were they going after me and showing YouTube videos? The answer is why, indeed. They came out of their books. And if anybody reads Gerald Blaine's book, The Kennedy Detail, it's blame the victim writ large. It's like a neon sign. Kennedy did it. Kennedy killed himself. Basically, you might say, what? Kennedy killed himself? Vince, what are you talking about? He believes Oswald had it alone, but he said that Kennedy ordered him off the car. He didn't want that bubble top. Oh, he did this. If this never would have happened, if Oswald never would have succeeded if Kennedy didn't order him off the car. And he did all that because he saw my writings. He said, my God, because I sent a 22-page letter to Clint Hill in 2005, which was a thumbnail sketch of all my work. When I spoke to Clint Hill after I sent him a letter bold enough to do that, he was angry as heck at me. He goes, I don't have any interest in talking to you and all that. And then all of a sudden, I read the trade papers, and there's Gerald Blaine with a foreword by Clint Hill. And they're writing a book called The Kennedy Detail. And right on the flap jacket, it says, Kennedy often banned them from the car. It's like, oh, here we go. And then I get an attorney letter from Gerald Blaine saying to cease and desist about blogging about him any longer. I didn't, because I talked to my attorney. He says, it's free speech. As long as you're not calling him something really horrible, you're allowed to. It's free speech. Keep doing what you're doing. You're all right. I'll protect you. Well, a friend of Gerald Blaine's contacted me at work right before my first book, Survivor's Guilt, was coming out. I got a scary call from the head of human resources. Vince, can I speak to you? Yeah. Is there a private room, just you and I? I thought, I'm getting fired. What did I do? I didn't do anything wrong, did I? So, and I can't, for legal reasons, say the gentleman's name. He was a good friend of Gerald Blaine. That such and such contacted the CEO, and once you terminated for your anti-patriotic writings about his friend Gerald Blaine, this guy was in military intelligence. I won't say his name. Well, he called not once or twice. No, your listeners are probably wondering, what happened? What happened, Vince? Well, no consequence, thank God, came to me. They laughed. Says, Vince, all letters are censored. They never go screened, I should say. They never go to the CEO. They read them first, and if it's deemed appropriate, they'll send it on to them. So the CEO never said it, never saw it. Vince, you're okay. Your employment's fine with us. You didn't do anything wrong. Says, I don't know why he's doing it, but if he writes again, he'll be in trouble. He wrote again. A month later, he wrote another letter trying to get me terminated from my job. So if people think there's nothing to this, Oswald, let alone get a life, why is Gerald Blaine of the Kennedy Detail sending angry attorney letters to me? Why are they talking to me about on C-SPAN, little old me on C-SPAN before a book came out? And why is he having his military intelligence connected friend trying to get me fired from my job if there's nothing to this? Why indeed? That's what I'll say. Because they realize, so Sean, what they realize is Oswald or no Oswald, conspiracy or no conspiracy, they're the men who killed Kennedy. Because again, it should have been prevented. It's not like Vince, oh, come on, damn you. Greer does his normal. I always tell people, if a loved one's in the back of the car, okay, and shots ring out, and they're like this, and you gonna sit there and go, are you okay? Is everything like this? No, you're going to hit the gas. You're going to swerve. You're going to do something. Instead, he didn't do what he did. And all the other things that were taken away from Kennedy. And again, all this happened on the day Kennedy shot. It's not like all this happened in Louisville, Kentucky, Vince, and nothing untoward happened to Kennedy when all the security breakdown. It's happened in the midst of all these things. He's warned not to go to Dallas. Then you have all these security taken away from him. Then you have here's another thing, too, is about 8 agents I spoke to believe there was a conspiracy. They're not all Oswald Attal alone people. Oh, no. Maurice Martineau, the head of the Chicago office, former White House detail agent who was Abraham Bolden's boss in Chicago, who couldn't stand Bolden. But what he did tell me is he believed there was a conspiracy. He says, when I got some of the details and knew what was going on, I said, I was fascinated. I said, sir, can you share them? He says, no, I can't share the detail. I'll just tell you that I definitely believe there's a conspiracy, and we'll just let it go at that. I don't want to be quoted on any details and whatnot. He didn't mind me interviewing him, but when it got into details, kibosh on that. Sam Kinney, the driver of the fall car, adamantly believed there was a conspiracy. In fact, told me that the right rear Kennedy's head went on. When he was on the C-130 transport plane, he found the rear piece of Kennedy's skull in the C-130 in the limousine put in a foam patch to Dr. Berkeley and Thomas Mills, and they picked up the piece. He goes, well, whatever happened, I don't know. So it was clean as a pin. It looked like a big flower pot piece. It was just laying there. And I said, well, the beautiful brain is in case. He told me he was a big fan of President Kennedy. But then next to Sam Kinney on the running board was Tim McIntyre, who called Kennedy a procurer of prostitutes and was angry at Kennedy. So that's what I mean. That's, you have the mixture. You have good agents, bad agents, very few bad agents, and the other ones just following orders. Everything's just, it is what it is. You have a gaggle agents, you got one bad apple. Here's the thing. This will really, I'm not a big proponent of LBJ did it, although I can respect people that do. This is grist for the mill for people who believe LBJ did it. One of my three suspects is Emory Roberts, who was the commander of the FOB car agents. The shooting happens. He orders the agents not to move. This is before Kennedy's killed. The first shots ring guy, in fact, it's on the coup in Camelot. I show the audio, play the audio from Sam Kinney. He was sitting right next to him. Emory Roberts died in 1973, and Sam Kinney was still alive up to 1997. I spoke to him in the early 90s. I said, is this true? You're telling me? He says, oh, yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, he ordered the agents not to move. But then I think he caught him, like, realized, wait a minute, why would he do something like that? So he read, well, I think he just didn't want Jack Reedy and Clint Hill to get run over by the car. Say, wait. You don't think about the age. Like another agent I spoke to who guarded Obama, Bush. He said that's ridiculous. You don't care one iota about your own personal safety. You would never tell the other agents to cease and desist or restrict their flow of security. Why would you do that? What happened to Emory Roberts after the assassination? Oh, nothing much, Sean. He just became the appointment secretary to LBJ. Yeah, in 1965. Now, he was still an agent up to when he died in 1973. He replaced Dave Powers at that same desk near the Oval Office. And the reporters were wondering, what's this active agent introduced to the Prime Minister of Japan? What's he doing? And I got the articles in my books, the last couple of books. The press was just, what is this Emory Roberts doing, doing appointment secretary duties? And again, there's no doubt about it. He did what he did. He's the only agent I could ever find who was an active agent, even a retired agent, and doing duties for the president. You're supposed to be apolitical. You're not supposed to be Democrat or Republican, pro or anti-president. You're there to do a job, whether you like them or you hate them, whatnot. And it's just crazy. And when LBJ left the office, he did the final farewell of the Secret Service. And guess what he said? He called Emory Roberts by name. He says, Emory Roberts couldn't be here today. He greets me every morning and says goodbye to me every night. And this is the agent who ordered the agents not to move when the shooting began. When they got to Parkland Hospital, guess what he did? To Roy Kellerman, his superior, he said, you stick to Kennedy. We're sticking to Johnson. And they all ran into Parkland Hospital shielding LBJ when Roy Kellerman's getting the lifeless body of Kennedy out of the back seat. And Roy Kellerman's his boss. So again, that's all it takes is a few people. So Bill Greer, Emory Roberts, shift leader, and Floyd Boring, who was the planner of the Texas trip for the Secret Service, who was safely in Washington at the time, allegedly washing windows. Was all, but he is in communication. Winston Lawson, the lead advance agent. He admitted this to the House Select Committee, and you see the back and forth documents before this. In fact, Floyd Boring, again, this only came out in the 90s onward. His oral history to the JFK Library and the Truman Library came out, and Floyd Boring admitted he was on all the advance work for President Kennedy, all his trips. Anytime there was a trip, whether he was there or not, he was part of the security. He was part of the advance work. So it's like, oh, so when people say, oh, it was Winston Lawson who altered that route, could it have been Winston Lawson, or could it have been Floyd Boring back in Dallas who's pushing things and saying, because we know Clint Hill admitted that Floyd Boring was the man who told him and other colleagues not to ride in the back of the car for Dallas. But here's the interesting thing, Sean. In 2010, Clint Hill, with Gerald Blaine by his side, did an oral history at the 640 Museum. I was flabbergasted. I got a copy of it, and it's very boring, to be honest. Yet nothing to just one tantalizing, jaw-dropping moment. He says, well, when it comes to anything the president says to you, you could listen to it, but you don't follow it. You do what you feel is right. So what we used to do is listen to President Kennedy. We did what we felt was best anyway. So there he is on video admitting him and his book was all full of crap about Kennedy or on the card. He said even if Kennedy would have said something, they would have disobeyed it and did what they thought was best anyway. It's on my YouTube channel. I have a bootleg of it where I got it looped over and over again with even with a transcript. So we go, and I've had so many people say, I can't believe Clint Hill said this, because this destroys the whole genesis of his book and Gerald Blaine's book, where the onus, that's the big thing I always hear from people that believe Oswald acted alone. Oh, come on. Kennedy didn't want those agents on a car. So when you find out that's bull and it was a Secret Service myth, then you say to yourself, what else are they lying about? What other security was breached? Again, it was only the year 2020 during COVID. I got that video of Ron Gardner telling the entire world, normally multi-story building rooftops are guarded, and we can't see any in these pictures that any agents or officers on the building rooftops. Huh. So there you go. So there's even more details if you want. I can tell you even more stuff about what went wrong.
This is great. All right, so we've got almost 1,000 people watching live right now across all platforms. I'm here with Vince Palamara, author. His YouTube channel link is in the description box. Amazon link is down there. Several people, Vince, have put in the chat that you're one of the best JFK guests we've had on the channel. So viewers, put a 1 in the chat if you agree with that. If you think Vince is one of the best JFK guests we've had on the channel, put a 2. If you can't stand Vince, I think it's going to be all ones, my friend.
I vote that way.
I'll put a 1 in from me as well.
Some people talk to me. They say, "Vince, you talk too damn fast." I'm sorry if I do that. Sometimes I talk fast.
No, it's great. We love the energy. It's great. You cover more ground doing that. So, going back to the chronology again. So we got to the point where we discussed. You believe there was a crossfire. So President gets whacked. We've got tonight. We've got coming on Buell Wesley Frazier from the Texas School Book Depository building, who was Oswald's
work. 2019. Yeah, nice guy.
That's in 5 hours, viewers. What do you think, Vince, happened from when Kennedy was assassinated? Can you tell us what happened? You think happened in the book depository building? Yeah, sure. In the book depository building, I think Oswald's down there in the lunchroom, like he said he was. He was getting a Coke. He's down below. Now, what transpired up above was his rifle, and I think the rifle was already put together. It was never taken down because, again, Flip DeMay, he came up 2 tremendous books. One was called the Lee Harvey Oswald Files, and he did a tremendous service in the one part of his book showing, and I think it was with the late Ian Griggs involved in the footnotes, that there's no way that rifle could have been taken apart, put together, and used. It wouldn't have been accurate. It wouldn't have been sighted in yet. He couldn't have fired it accurately in any way. So what that means is the rifle had to have been put together beforehand. Someone else slipped the rifle in. Do I think Oswald was lily white and totally innocent? No. Big no. Why wasn't he watching the motorcade? He was so politically active. I think he was waiting for a contact. He was waiting for something to happen. He was waiting for a phone call that never came, to quote the JFK movie. So I don't think poor innocent Oswald, he had nothing to do with anything. No, I just don't think he was a shooter. And I think that they try to stick it all on him. And that's what he said. He's a patsy. He's, I don't know what this is about. And you can tell I have it on my YouTube channel of all his denials, everything, all the time he was parade around. And so he needed someone to blame, and they shoved the blame on him. That's why when people go like, oh, Vince, what's your take on the ballistic shows that came from Oswald's rifle for those people that believe Oswald acted alone? Says, well, of course, you got to have somebody to set up. In fact, if it didn't, then I'd say to myself, well, then who are they going to blame? And then Oswald's connected to Russia and Cuba. They want to bomb Cuba back to the Stone Age. You had all that. Not to get off your point, to be specific to the book depository. I think he's a little befuddled. He leaves the book depository. Then he realizes, oh, my God, this is going to be all on me. No one else is involved. This is going to be put on me. I wasn't even upstairs, whether someone used my rifle or whatnot. Bill Wesley Frazier was one of many people that didn't believe Oswald did it and believed the shot came from the front as well. But many book depository employees thought a shot came from the front as well. So you had that. And then, the thing about Tippit is that I believe Tippit was the first Ruby. He was going to kill Oswald before Oswald was ever paraded in front of media and police. And we'd hear about the dead Oswald was this brave officer, J.D. Tippit, did it. I don't think Oswald killed Tippit, or if he did kill Tippit, I take Andy Purdy's notion on.